Welcome back, or if this is your first episode, welcome aboard. My name is Greg McLaughlin, and this is the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Welcome to our recap show of the 2025 National Sports Collectors Convention show, and I'm kind of kicking it off where I kind of stopped and started again, because I'm here at the kickoff of Fan Expo Chicago, which took place in the exact same space here at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center just a few weeks later. But considering how the national show was put together, it all kind of makes sense, and I'll explain right after this.
Hi, this is Josh Trout, Artist for Tops, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
Right here, Java.
Been waiting for you.
Have you now?
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
My boy, there are times you disappoint me. I'm only doing this because you're the best and because I need you. For an extra 15%, I'll give you a little extra time. But this is it.
Java, you're a wonderful human being.
Everything's gonna be all right, kid.
You found the Rebel Base Card Podcast.
She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid.
I'm your host, Greg McLaughlin.
Have I made a few bad decisions? Sure.
We talk about cards, collecting Star Wars, and to people in the Star Wars community.
Don't worry, we're gonna meet up with some friends of mine.
Look for special episodes called The Breakfast Pack, talking about your favorite Star Wars shows.
We will never have a better chance than this.
All right, let's get started.
Well, perhaps it is time to begin again.
So to kind of explain, I only had a short amount of time at the National, and I knew it was going to be tight if I was going to record anything. But during that time where I hung out with Ian Taylor of the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, now that Card Collectors Podcast, and Carl Schmidt, and got to meet some of the folks, some folks for the first time, got to hang out at the Upper Deck booth for a little bit, and walked around a little bit. I only really got about a third of the show that I was kind of hoping I was going to get. So I called in a couple of favors, and Sal Berry of Puck Junk Podcast, who was here for the full show, as well as sketch artist Ian McKesson, just did me a solid and came on and gave me some great interviews to talk about their experiences at the National, along with the audio that I already got, and of course running into a friend of mine, Carl Schmidt, also a great collector as well. You've heard him on the podcast before. So kind of putting all that together, it really, I think, made for a great show, as I've been kind of going back over, kind of editing and putting everything together. But also in this episode, after everything's said and done, of course, one of the biggest things that happened at the National as far as Star Wars card collecting was, there was a Star Wars card that sold for $100,000. But at the end of the day, what you're going to hear on this recap is myself and Ian Taylor, Carl Schmidt, Sal Berry, and Ian McKesson talk about the experiences of the National, some of it while it happened, some of it, of course, after it happened. But that's going to kind of give you a flavor of how this show is going to go. But anyway, we're going to get to my coverage of the National. We're going to kind of let it play along. I might come in every now and then just to kind of give you an idea of where everything is. And we'll be right back right after this.
Hey, this is artist and author Cameron Johnson, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Now, come on, get to it.
Normally about this time I would do something that I call homestead keeping, which kind of gives you a little bit of news and notes. And like I said, one of the biggest pieces of news was, of course, that sale at the National. But of course, coming up here, I think around August 20th, we do have the release of the 2025 Top Star Wars Chrome, which is not the first release of the year, but I would say probably the first release, if you have been following me for a while, of cards that I think are going to be accessible to a lot more than just more of your high-ends, kind of like your Galactic Antiquities, your high-tech, your masterwork. So I'm excited to get my hands on some. I do have a pre-order in at GameStop, which I would have to say of the last year or so has kind of been my MVP, because they're pulling in hobby boxes as well as blasters. Now, I know the cutoff for pre-orders at GameStop happened a long time ago. I think it only happened on that May the 4th. But what they're telling me is that after they satisfy those pre-orders, if there are any stock still available, they'll go on sale. So I would recommend that in addition to the regular places, either online, through the big three, as it were, the David Adams, Steel City, Blowout Cards, Chicagoland Sports Cards, you may want to check your local GameStop as well as Target and Walmart and see if those blasters or even hobby boxes are available, because it is kind of nice, and I think it's a set that, you know, it may be out for a little bit. You may see blasters for some time. They might be gobbled up, but this is a set that you and I might be able to chase and find some great cards, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some of the newer characters that'll be introduced, like last year where they had those debut cards for, like, you know, Balin Skull and so forth. So I'm kind of excited about that. That starts on 8/20. So without further ado, I'm going to get out of homestead keeping here, and we're going to come back, and we're going to start my adventure with Ian Taylor as we talk about what the expectations were for the National, and then some of what actually happened. We'll be right back after this.
This is Jalen Warner, and you're listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid. Don't get cocky.
So you're finally here, Ian, and you're about ready to attend your first National, as I understand it. What are some things that are kind of going through your mind just to kind of kick this conversation off as we get set to head into day one of the National?
Oh, gosh, I'm still jet-lagged, I won't lie to you. I've no idea what to expect. I know it's going to be big, I know it's going to be busy, but for me, it's less about what's there. I'm kind of open to everything. I'm going to be like a bit of a sponge in that regard. But for me, it's all about meeting friends and like meeting you for the first time. Dear listeners, Greg and I had never met until yesterday evening when he picked me up from the airport. Greg is doing a sterling job as my Uber driver this week as well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it's, you know what, it's just nice to be back in America, because I have been to America before, of course, but, you know, first time in Chicago. And it's just nice to be here.
I would say it's interesting because although there are a number of large shows now, you know, Fanatics Fan Fest wasn't that long ago, there is still a panache, there is still, you know, the industry still will be here as we're going to see, so it kind of stops. It's not like, you know, Celebration is what, you know, this would be what the closest thing to Celebration for, you know, a lot of my listeners who are not hardcore card collectors. So we're going to see Upper Deck here. We're going to see Panini. We're going to see Topps. We're going to see eBay. We're going to see all the major players there. And so it's kind of nice because even though there are other things going on, all eyes will be here for the next few days.
Yeah, well, it's kind of agnostic in that regard, because Fanatics Fest is very much one company's event. So it's obviously geared towards them. This one, you know, I mean, everyone's going to... I mean, eBay have got a big stand there. Upper Deck have got a stand there. Topps have got a stand there. Dave and Adams will be there. There's going to be breakers through the roof. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's from listening to this fine podcast and looking at your content, I'm very aware of the scale of it and how big it is. I'm fully prepared for my Apple Health step count to be well into the 5 figures, and you know what? That's no bad thing considering the cheeseburger that I'm about to eat. But I think, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're collecting sports or non-sports, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or, you know, Pokemon or Magic or any of the other IPs. This is kind of just about the collecting as a whole. And obviously, you know, this show, more than anything else, is about the business of cards. You know, the companies that come here, they drop a not inconsiderable amount of money. You know, I can imagine that, you know, I'm going to mention Upper Deck because I'm going to be seeing them, but their convention booth, it's not a booth, it's like a small show home, and it literally has an Upper Deck. Now, those things just on their own would be well into 6 figures for them to actually pay for and build and, you know, plan and budget for, transport, construct, you know. So it's, you know, people drop a lot of money on being here, and the one thing I've kind of gleaned from trying to arrange my own little audio snippets with people is that it's difficult to pin people down to a time, because they're here to network, they're here to have business meetings, they're here to do deals, to see people, to, you know, it's the kind of oil, if you like, that keeps those gears moving. And your pizza has arrived.
I'm not going to undersell the Moretti's barbecue pizza. You have said your piece on it, but I will say This is a meat lover's bonanza.
Oh, it's got pepperoni on it.
It's a little bit of everything. But as I segue just briefly before we break for eating, the one thing about the National you're going to see, you alluded to the Breakers Pavilion. There'll be like the vendors. There'll be the corporate ones. There's going to be all facets of the hobby there. You'll see the Pokemon. You'll see the TCGs. So it's one of those things where even though we may be fixated in one aspect of the hobby or other, you're going to be exposed to a lot of other sides of the hobby. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, and I think, listen, I mean, the podcast that I do has just kind of changed its focus and ethos and branding. Listen to us on That Card Collectors Podcast at the CC Pod. There's a little advert there. But I don't think it's a bad thing to see. All right, this is going to be a clumsy metaphor. It may or may not work. But you go into market, okay, and you've got your pigs, but you're looking over and you're saying, okay, well, that's how the guys who raise sheep and cattle are faring. And that's the kind of thing that they're going through. I'm looking over at that guy's field. Oh, he ploughs his field a bit differently. He cuts his cloth accordingly. And I think, there's a lot to be learned. Oh, hello, cheeseburger. There's a lot to be learned from other... Thank you very much. There's a lot to be learned from how other people are doing the hobby, whether it be for fun or be it for business. I'm going to have to eat some food. So.
No, that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to stop for now, but probably the next time we hear from both of us, we will actually be at the National, so I'm kind of excited. It'll be kind of interesting to see some of his reactions as well. So we're going to stop for now. We're going to come back in a little bit with more on the National 2025 here at Rosemont, a suburb of Chicago.
This is Rodney Roberts, a.k.a. The Art Nerd.
With 2 R's in the word nerd.
And also of Meanwhile the Podcast. And you're listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
I am here with both Ian Taylor. We've heard him a little earlier, but I got Carl Schmidt, who I see every year at C2. But he is here, nephew in hand.
Correct.
It's already a massive show, and I want to know why his feet are so tired. Is it because the show is so much bigger this year?
It's the size of the show, number one. Number two, it's also having to wait in line for the Star Wars silver packs for Topps. So we got here real early, maybe a little bit too early, sat around waiting for it to open, and then since then it's pretty much been waiting in line to get those packs.
Speaking of VIP, Ian and I kind of got sucked into what looked like the main line, but it was the VIP line that went out to the parking garage. Was that the line you were in?
No, it was we were in a different one, but the man, there's so many different lines. This has exploded this year. It's far bigger than I remember from the one that I went to a few years ago. So
I'd say once we got out of that line, we were in within 10 minutes though. Mainly, I think, because you've been here before. We would have been in quicker, but for the fact that I kept stopping to have photos with every single sign that said the National this way.
Well, no, because also it's like you see, like we're very like you see a line of people, you want to be very polite. You're like, oh, this must be the line. But then there's this guy going up and again like, this is great. It's the VIP line, and you're like, oh, what's nice being surrounded by a million content creators is you're going to eventually figure out what the vibe is, and we're like, oh, we're in the wrong line. Walked out. It was great because fresh air, and then we went down and like, oh, you just walked right in. You got your wheel call tickets. You got VIP. I got the wristbands. The wristband of shame for being a one day. But what I would say, you've been to your fair share of cons. I have to say the fresh air and space of a early day far is better than, let's say, if we came on a Saturday.
Absolutely. I'm actually seeing the attendance today, which is a half day, which doesn't get a full day of attendance. I'm a little concerned about Saturday. I think it will. To put it in comparison to you, I think it's going to rival Artist Alley at C2E2 on a Saturday.
Something that you were kind of doing, we're over here at the Upper Deck booth. No, we're not here at the Topps booth. Topps booth is rather large, by the way, but we're here at the Upper Deck booth and loud. it's about meeting and greeting and getting to talk, and really the kind of pressure is off for you because you'll be here for multiple days, but it is finally nice to see some people in the flesh.
Yeah, and it's what it reminds me of is there's been a lot of conversation in non-sports hobby circles of late over kind of who has access to speak to this card manufacturer, who has access to speak to this one, who kind of owns those relationships. And the simple fact is, no one owns them. You nurture and you develop trust with, the people that you talk to for the podcast. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. I've got a good relationship with the guys at Upper Deck because I've helped them promote stuff. I've given them feedback on their product. They've come on the podcast. It's a symbiotic relationship. So I think it's nice to actually be able to, as someone who does that remotely from the UK, it's nice to be able to come over here and actually meet them. To actually shake their hands, to be off record, and just to share some intel and maybe get a few off the record hints as to what might be coming up.
Well, and I would put Carl into this category of, now Carl's a little more serious collector like myself, but I would say that as a Star Wars fan, as a casual fan, because that's a lot of what we talk about, after a while we're like, we enjoy the chase. We enjoy opening and finding stuff. And when you find a company like the booth we happen to be at, you're hearing that excitement and zeal. And maybe for us it's like, oh, I never really thought about, let's say, a Superman or a Batman or some other property, but I'm like, that sure looks fun over there where there's ample product in stores I can get. And so I think it's important, especially for these folks and any of the corporate people, to go talk to your collectors, because yes, the noise and the all the fireworks and stuff like that works great, but for your nephew here, it's like, yeah, it's about cushy carpets and product that I can get my hands on and enjoy actually building a set.
Yeah, I think you're right about being able to get your hands on product, because that's there's so many flippers now, and to find something at retail that you can get and enjoy and like, even something like the National has completely changed when it comes to the entry level of cards that are displayed. I mean, you're talking $250 and up on cards that are the front and displayed. I mean, you're going to sound like an old timer by saying, well, it wasn't that way before, but this seems to be within the past five or so years that we've seen that rapid increase in price, and I worry about the new collectors, just because and for people like us, we have a little bit of that OCD to complete sets, and that ability is really it's hard. Those sets are no longer accessible. It takes more hobby boxes at a greater price to put together a base set, and that's a challenge. It's really a challenge these days.
I was going to say, what it reminds me of is you'll remember going to Comic-Cons and actually seeing comics at Comic-Cons, and you've got your boxes you can wade through, you've got your back issue bins, and then you've got your wall books at the back. Okay, so that's the stuff that you can look at, and it's like, it's not everybody, but it's not the most accessible thing, so it's not there. But now, from what you've just said, it's flipped. You've got the high dollar stuff right there, and they might not have out. They might not even have brought with them the stuff that you might actually be looking for or might want to afford. Not everyone's like that, but certainly from the initial circuit we did, there's some very high value stuff front and center. Now, I get it from the point of view of making ends meet, because if you're going to be here, there's probably a cost to it, and if costs go up elsewhere, you're going to have to meet them, otherwise you can't afford to be here. So I understand why it is. It's an interesting flip.
Blowout Forum actually had a real good topic, a thread on that the other day, where some of the vendors here were talking about the product that they weren't bringing. And the reason they weren't bringing it is exactly what you said. This is high dollar space. I need to get my money back, and it's not viable for everybody. So we need to bring what can sell. However, you want to contact me on the side, which kind of defeats the purpose of coming to an event like this.
One last thing I will say before I kind of let us all split up is that the thing that I love most, other than listening to the very loud people in the background, is the fact that the people who I'm standing here with are folks that I interacted with first online. Now, we can talk on the side about how tall everybody is, and I'm going to go on record saying everybody in this hobby is taller. But what I would say is it's fun because Carl and I go back to my first C2 when I just started the podcast. Ian also started his podcast around the same time. I love seeing people mix. I love people when they come by and they go, hey, it's nice. You know, like, that's what I think this is what makes a show like this so great, is that everybody gets to mix and you get to find and chase what you love just here at the show. Just lastly, because that was more soapboxing than really asking a question, but I just want to say before we kind of wrap up, Carl, because I know I'm going to let you go because I know your nephew's really tired, where can people find you online?
People can find me online on Instagram, PILEO64.
By the way, some massively good sketch covers as well, Ian. So if you haven't checked his site yet.
I take absolutely no credit for that. Those are all the artists. I just happen to luck into some of that. So
PILEO, was that?
Yep.
64?
Correct.
Let's have a look.
And every C2, he always introduced me to new artists.
Right, followed.
Listen to that, folks. This is a live follow. This is not. This is what's happening in real time.
You heard it here first, folks.
Anyway, all right, Carl. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let Ian go. We're going to let you guys go out there. More from the National as it comes up. We'll be back after a bit.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bobby Sussman.
And I'm Nadia Kovacs.
We're the Galaxy Edge Explorers, and you are currently listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
All right, let's get into my conversation with Sal Berry of the Puck Junk Podcast. He was here for the duration of the show, and I got a chance to catch up with him and see what he thought of this year's show. Although you follow primarily hockey, you're like me. Being a Star Wars fan, we have a niche that this show, you know, we're not the primary audience there, and so you kind of have to roam and look. I'm curious, with your time that you spent there, how did you feel that the National kind of catered to things you were interested in seeing?
Well, like I like to tell people, the National is so big that it's going to have something. It's going to have some of what you're looking for. So, you know, if you took all the water in the Atlantic Ocean and then said, all right, I'm going to take 5% of the water from the Atlantic Ocean, that's still enough to drown in. You know, that's still a lot of water, right? So if I say, okay, there were 600 dealers and only 30 of them had hockey, that's still 30. I mean, that's still better than like a typical show, not counting like a show in Canada where that's where they specialize in that. Right. But I mean, it was like that in a lot of cases where, like, if you were looking for non-sport cards, yeah, there were dealers that had non-sport cards. I'm sure you saw some of them. Mm-hmm. There was, you know, a couple that maybe specialized in it, but, you know, if you looked around, everybody had something, you know? So, I mean, as far as like my personal passion, hockey, there was quite a bit of it where you'd have like a dealer that had like vintage cards from like the 60s and 70s. And yeah, they probably had a little bit of hockey. They might also have like a 1977 Star Wars set, you know what I mean? Because that was just kind of like more like an era, right? Like where they'd have cards from like this, or you'd have like the modern people. I feel like modern tends to be a little more specialized. You know, like the guys who sell old baseball cards are probably going to have old football cards and old basketball cards and maybe old hockey cards. But the people who do like new basketball that's like graded are really going to just focus on that. I don't feel like they kind of cover the other sports as well, if that makes sense.
You know, kind of moving to the show floor itself, with the expanded space, how did you feel about moving around this year's show? You know, in Chicago, of course it's come back to Donald E. Stevens, but you know, Wednesday night's different from say Saturday or Sunday.
Right. Yeah. So, although Wednesday was crowded, and just to give a little context, because I actually wrote an article about this, so I have these numbers in my head. I want to say that the 2023 show in Chicago took up about 480 something thousand square feet. We'll just say 482,000 square feet. And then in 2024 in Cleveland, it took up 500,000 square feet. This year, it took up over 600,000 square feet. And that was by, I mean, I figured that out by adding up all the halls that were on the ground floor. And then they only used up a portion of the upstairs hall where they would normally have the Chicago Sports Spectacular. So Wednesday, I was walking around with my podcast co-host Clemente, and we looked at each other and said, this feels like a Friday. Like, it's crowded. Usually on a Wednesday, you could walk around, you could see things, you could go from table to table. No one's really in your way. And this is like, we were kind of like where you kind of look at a table and there would be like 4 or 5 other people around it, and you kind of have to wait your turn to look. And it's just like, yeah, this feels like Friday. Wednesday was crowded, Thursday was crowded, Friday and Saturday got so crowded that there were times where you just couldn't walk. Where like one person would stop walking and like everybody would just freeze because there was just no place to go. You'd have like gridlock. And it was like that downstairs. I don't know if you explored the upstairs area where they had the
I didn't get a chance to, and I was wanting to see how they did it.
So it was almost like, if you can imagine, like 25 tables in a row, another 25 tables in a row. Maybe it wasn't exactly 25, but basically they said 100 tables upstairs, right? They literally packed 100 dealers into what I think is about a 1/10 of the space upstairs.
Wow.
Which was really weird, because you've been to that show upstairs many times. It's a big space. I mean, you get a couple hundred dealers up there easy. This, they had 100 dealers, and they had them packed in like this really narrow, like, strip. And then they had like curtain walls on either side. And then they had like cordons. And it was just like, and I looked behind one of the curtains and I go, well, it's just empty from here to where the loading area is. And I'd look on the other side and it's empty from here to where those bathrooms are on that far wall. Why aren't they using more of this space? It just didn't make sense. But so that being said, it was super crowded up there, where I literally stood and I spread my hands out and I touched one table and I touched another table. I mean, that's how close they were. And you'd have, if you could only fit 3 people, one person looking at one table, one person looking at another table, and in just enough room to get between the 2 of them. So I don't know. It was really packed tight upstairs. So up there it felt claustrophobic. In fact, I avoided the upstairs Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday. I didn't even go up there. I was just like, I already looked at the stuff up there, and I'll just go back on Sunday and hope it's a little less crowded. And it's way less crowded on Sunday. Like half. It was, in fact, they had the air conditioning cranked on Sunday because they were expecting a lot of people, and it was pretty empty, and I was pretty cold. I was freezing. I actually went outside to warm up. That's how cold I got. I had to like go find sunlight and stand in it for like 5 minutes just to get some warmth back in my bones.
Yeah, and I can imagine, one of the reasons why they packed it so tight upstairs is obviously that, they needed the extra space, but of course square feet come in a premium, and of course if you whereas it seems like when you go into the Chicago Sports Spectacular, I mean, they use up a good bit of it, but it never really, it doesn't really feel like you're packed in there like sardines. I mean, and right. After a while, the aisles seem pretty comfortable in what you're doing, and if you've been there before, like yourself and some other folks, tend to have kind of the same, areas. So I can imagine like what those folks may not have gotten. I mean, you would have to have gone upstairs. I mean, with the intent of going upstairs, as opposed to downstairs. If you're just kind of doing laps or you're working your way around, you're going to kind of maybe run into like, it's kind of like being in that line at Target where it's like, oh yeah, I saw that before, or maybe I want to go over there, where it's like you'd have to go out of the hall, go up the escalator, so I'm kind of curious, probably just as a numbers game, they probably did well because of the number of attendees, but still they might not have done as well as had they been downstairs. You had talked before, like you write for other, periodicals and so forth. How were the industry folks that you were dealing with? Were they fair? I mean, I found at least Wednesday, everybody's, just gotten in, they're just happy to be there. But, as I guess as the day gone on, when did you choose to try to do some of your interviews?
Let me think. There were a couple of people I planned on talking to, right? And so 2 of them were dealers, and I just said, look, I want to talk to you after you've done the show for a few days, because I don't want to talk to you first thing Wednesday and be like, so how's the show going? It's like, well, it's been going on for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And actually that'd be the worst time, because everybody was so rabid to buy stuff those first, the first day especially, but then especially like Friday, Saturday. So I kind of wanted to wait until they got a feel for the show, and then also find a time where it was kind of quiet for them. So a couple of dealers I talked to on Sunday, and then I talked with somebody at a card company on Friday to fit their schedule. And then I just randomly just started talking to somebody in an autograph line. And it turns out that he was a listener of my hockey podcast. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I like you now, right? I like you even more now, right? Because, you're standing in line to get an autograph of, like, say, like a Chicago Bears football player, but you see somebody in like a hockey jersey. So it's like, hey, hockey fan, what's going on, right? And so I ended up talking to him because he had a lot of thoughts about, trying to find hockey cards at a show like that. And then I talked to somebody from an auction house who just seemed really happy to talk about some of the things that they were auctioning off. So, everybody's receptive, and I don't say unfortunately, but I don't really always go with the plan. It's just like sometimes if you could line up interviews, if you line up interviews, that's great. But sometimes you just kind of have to take the opportunity when it presents itself, and you see something cool and you go, wow, that's really cool. And then you start talking to the person, and then they're willing to share all this knowledge, and you go, wow, hey, you're actually really interested in talking about this topic. Do you mind if I record you and we talk about this first story that I'm writing? And usually they're like, oh yeah, of course. They're like, people love people love what they love. And when you get them to talk about the things that they love, it's just easy.
How did you feel about the autograph process? I know that with your VIP tickets, you got some autograph chances. How did you feel about how that was run and organized?
Pretty good. For the most part, I'd say pretty good. Yeah, if you buy the 5-day VIP pass, they give you a bunch of autograph tickets for they call them the VIP guests. I call them the cheap signers, right? Because you're not going to get a Peyton Manning autograph free with your 5-day admission. You're going to pay $300 for his autograph. I don't think he was signing there, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, those really popular retired players or even active players, you're going to pay, $200, $300, $400. I know last year, I think it was, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was charging upwards of like $700 to sign his rookie card, and he'd even charge you more if he thought it was in nicer shape. like his girlfriend was sitting there. Clemente was telling this story, my other podcast co-host Clemente, and he was just saying that he watched like his girlfriend say, oh, this looks like a PSA 9 near mint. And the guy'd say, no, I literally just broke this out of the grading slab. It was a PSA 6, right? But they'd be like, well, we're going to charge you this much to sign it, right? So, but for like a lot of the guys that, had like respectable careers or, maybe even great careers, sometimes they're even in the Hall of Fame or whatever. It just depends. Like sometimes you could get their autographs included with your ticket, with your VIP ticket. So like, for instance, like to throw out a baseball name that I know everybody's heard of, Dwight Gooden. He was one of the VIP autograph guests, and I got a few baseball cards signed by him.
Hi there, this is Dan Zaire from Coffee with Kenobi, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
So like, as far as how it was run, I mean, it was chaos, but it was organized chaos. You'd have like a mob of people, but then you also had like lines that said, if you're waiting for this person and you have this ticket, wait here. And if you're waiting for that same person, but you have this other type of autograph ticket, wait here. You know what I mean? And then, you'd kind of try to walk into where, to the queue, and then somebody would stop you, be like, where are you going? And I'd say, oh, I'm going to get so-and-so's autograph. Like, oh yeah, go ahead. You know what I mean? Or, oh no, we haven't called his name yet. Please go back in line. Or, oh, they haven't called wild cards for that person yet. Sometimes you'd get these tickets that said wild card, and they could be used for anybody who was one of those 18 pre-selected autograph guests. So, you know what? Like I said, it was organized chaos. I actually thanked the guy who was like kind of running that area, because he probably answered the same question 100 times a day, and he had to be kind of firm with people, but he was like super nice, That's and cool. I just said, hey, yeah, and I thanked him, and he said, wow, thanks, that means a lot, I'm like, yeah, man. I said, it's Sunday and you're still smiling and you're still happy, and you're just being super helpful. And, I'd come up to you and say, oh, is so-and-so signing autographs yet? And he'd say, no, not yet. And, oh, okay, thanks. You know what I mean? It's just, so I feel like it was pretty well run.
And overall, the momentum is still there. Is it still growing, or is it kind of, in a plateauing, as it were?
I don't feel like it's plateauing. I still feel like it's going to grow. It's going to be in Chicago the next 2 years. It's going to be in the same venue the next 2 years. So they're obviously they're going to, when you have something that's successful, you try to grow it, right? And I know, like, I mean, I'll just say this, like next year, I'm trying to be a dealer. I actually filled out an application and all of that stuff. The past few years, because you mentioned that normally I'm set up at a booth, I was set up with a friend, a dealer who had booth space, but he sold his space. So I no longer had that opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I like to say it's like you have a friend who has a nice house on the lake and they tell you, oh yeah, come stay for 5 days on my lake house, right? In the summer. And you do that for 4 years for free. And in the 5th year, they say, oh, I sold the lake house. And you could be like, oh, that really sucks. But then you go, but I had 4 good years and it was fun. Okay, so this year I went and I walked around and I bought stuff and it was fun. And this was it had the most attendance in history. It had the most dealers in history. It had the most square footage in history. And there was still a demand, right? There was still a demand. There were other people like myself who said, hey, I want to buy a booth space for next year's show. So there's definitely, if you have something, unfortunately, I mean, you see this on all types of business. They always feel like if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Right.
Like nobody just says, oh, let's just keep it like what we had it. It's always like they always have to be in a growth mode. So I still feel like this is in a growth mode because it hasn't hit a really big crash yet, which is surprising. I mean, you look at stuff like graded cards. Graded cards, there's such a glut of them, but now they're being bought and sold in repacks where you could buy a graded card for $300 and it's wrapped in foil like a pack of trading cards, but you open it up and it's a graded card, and it could be a graded Michael Jordan rookie card or it could be a graded worthless card, but it's a PSA 10. So hey, that's something, right? So it's a $40 card instead of a 25-cent card. But you paid $300 for it still, so oops.
But something else, and then we were kind of talking about that before, whereas like you really saw a lot of different aspects of the hobby. And although, the Star Wars card that sold for $100K or, the big signers, they make all the splash and all the slabs and so forth. It's still a hobby that it's more than just breakers. It's more than just high-end cards. It's vintage, it's dollar bins, it's all these different things. And, I think that's the National, I think, just as a show, kind of reminded me that there's more than just the stuff that makes a lot of noise or gets in your feeds and so forth. There's still a lot of folks who are collecting all different kind of things in all different kind of ways.
Yeah, and, it's funny when you say all walks. So the way a lot of the National works is your dealers closest to the door, the front door, the entrance, are the ones that have been doing it the longest. So that first area when you walk in is going to be mostly vintage dealers or dealers who've been doing things for a long time. Like, in fact, it was funny. I went I saw a set of baseball cards I wanted, and I didn't buy it. It was on a Saturday, and I'm like, I should have bought it, right? So Sunday morning, I told Clemente, I said, hey, I'm going to go right away to this dealer and see if they have this baseball card set because I'm mad that I didn't buy it. Well, they weren't open yet. All their stuff was locked up. And I'm like, oh, man, all right. So I go find Clemente over by our friends who are over in the next room. And then when I came back, that dealer was set up. And I looked at them and I said, wow, look at you guys. I'm gone for, I come here, you're all locked up. I turn around, you're all set up. And it's this older gentleman and his wife. And the wife says, oh, well, yeah, we've been doing this for 50 years. And I'm just like, so, they obviously knew how to set up their booth in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? So, but that just tells you, right? That they had been doing it for such a long time, and all these dealers had been doing it for such a long time. And so, yeah, they're going to have a lot of the older stuff. You go further back, the further away you get, in most cases, it's going to be people selling new stuff, new basketball cards, new football cards, new baseball card, Pokemon cards, graded cards, right? They're going to be the new blood dealers. And then they kind of put the breakers in the middle. And that felt like a carnival. You walk, me and Clemente, we took a shortcut through the breaker pavilion, as they call it. And then it was funny. It was almost like movie timing. He looked at me, he goes, yeah, the next time you decide you want to cut through the breaker pavilion, and then we both said at the same time, don't, because it's like, you're like trying to weave through all these people with their cases of cards, and everybody's like transfixed on like, oh, spin the wheel and win a prize. And oh, here's all these TVs. And like, it just like, you saw the Whatnot booth, right?
Oh yeah.
What was your impression? I mean, didn't that feel like almost like it felt kind of like, I want to say like something out of Star Trek, but it'd be like a new Star Trek, like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. It's like a million screens everywhere, and like all these like you walked by and you had to like squint because it was just like this wall of televisions. It was nuts.
And the fact that there were, individual, it's like looking at like a TV studio where there are individual breaks going within that. And we saw that a little bit last year at Cleveland with sort of like, the Breaker Bowl or whatever like that. Yeah, it felt very Carnival-esque, and I'm wondering, I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to kind of watch, because there's just like so much going on. But I think you're right. The attention span, I mean, it's brighter, it's flashier. Everybody's got, like there's booths with couches, there's booths with, like wheels and things like that. And it's amazing to kind of see. And then you got like, oh, those are the people, oh, those are the ones everybody's talking about, or this, that. It just, but I do like the fact that it was sort of in its own thing. So if you wanted that experience, you got it. But otherwise, yeah, when you kind of go through and you're just like, you get on the other side of it, like, what just happened? Where was I at? It felt like, it felt strange, but it's, I think it felt to me more compartmentalized. That I was expecting it, I think, more this time, and I was like, all right, it wasn't such a kind of a shock, because especially with Cleveland, it was way down and it had its own end, and so it's almost like a gradient. As you worked towards it, it got busier and busier, and then all of a sudden, boom! This one, it felt like here's a big stage of small stages, and everybody's got their own thing, and at the end of the night, it was striking, but and then on the other hand, you're like, you kind of go back into like another large area with all these different booths and stuff, and you're going, well, did we just get picked up by the Wizard of Oz, with the tornado, and like landed back down, and now we've got to, now we can go on. But yeah, I would say if you were trying to avoid that, it probably would be like, all right, let's get through here. All right, because I think the hardest part is seeing something on day one and going, oh yeah, I saw that thing over there, and you think like, I'm going to come back to that. Then you look around going, I have no idea where that is.
Like, yeah, guilty. I've been guilty of that. And actually, obviously there's some things that I did not buy that I wish I did. Well, I regret one thing that I bought, and I regret 3 things that I didn't buy. But overall, I look at what I got and I go, yeah, you know what? I had a good time. I bought some things that I wanted. I bought some things that I didn't know that I wanted. I think sometimes you just have to, like, it's like that opportunity. Sometimes you just have to go with those things where you say, oh, here's a hockey card from 1955. And you're like, well, I'm not really building the 1955 set. But then you go, yeah, but it's only $15. And It's in nice shape. And this person has mostly baseball. Or this card is just such an outlier that they're just happy to get rid of it for $15. You know what I mean? I go to a dealer who has like nothing but hockey, and he's probably going to want $40 for that same card. So, you know what I mean? You got to learn to like jump on those opportunities, which I'm sure you have. But then if you jump on everything, then you're broke 10 tables in. So,
It may start with one 1955 hockey card, and then you might go, you know what? If I see him again or something like that, I can kind of pick at it, because sometimes it's kind of nice just to have a slow chase that I'm not in a hurry to finish, but I do know at some point when you finish the easy stuff and you're down to the high end cards or the high number, like, all right, it becomes a completely different chase, and you're going to need large shows that have multiples of that, because then you have a little bigger market. Whereas like, it becomes something where even going online, to ComC or eBay or things like that. So
for like a lot of people who come to the National, I mean, they're flying in from out of town, they're driving in from out of town. they don't have a lot of major shows in their area. They might have
Right.
like a weekend, maybe like a regional show. But I mean, even like the Chicago Sports Spectacular, people come in from all over the Midwest for that, So
Exactly.
yeah, so we are lucky where we're located. We didn't get the George Lucas Museum, but we did get the National at least for 3 out of the next 4 years. So
We still have 50 Star Wars baseball card collections left.
And that includes the Chewbacca if he played for the Brewers card.
That is lovely.
He's a second baseman there.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's a
art.
good-looking card.
That's a winner.
Well, you had your co-host kind of come in. Now, one of them, Tim's a little closer, but Clemente comes in from New York. I always kind of, the one thing if I would have saw him, I really would have probably continued the conversation you guys had on Fanatics Fest, because that's more closer to where he is. But it was probably nice to kind of get the gang together in person, because normally you're seeing everybody from the Zoom up, right? Did you guys get a chance to just kind of relax and enjoy the company of each other for a change?
I mean, yeah, we hung out and talked for a bit. We kind of walked around the show together, which was fun because I haven't really done that in a while. I know like last year when I was at the National and I was, just selling at the National, I could only really just kind of look at like, between my booth and the bathroom. If something caught my eye, maybe I'd stop and look. Or if it got slow, I'd maybe walk around a little bit. But like, the thing is that, I mean, Clemente and I walked around a bit and it was fun. I mean, it kind of took me back to like the day, like back to the 90s. I hate to sound like an old man, but like, back in the 90s, like, okay, so being like in my teens or early 20s and going to Wizard World Chicago. I mean, it was Comic-Con Chicago, then it was Wizard World Chicago. I believe is it Fan Expo now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So going to that with like my friends, you know what I mean? And like just walking around and like, it was cool because I mean, I think as you get older, you stop hanging out with your childhood friends or your college friends. And then if you go to a show, a lot of times you just go by yourself because you have other commitments. So you go, I could just go for a few hours this day or whatever. So it was actually fun to actually hang out with friends and walk around and like have lunch and stuff like that. It was cool.
That's cool. All right. I know that you guys have done your recap show already, and you're kind of moving along there. But just to let people know where they can find the Puck Junk podcast and what they should be expecting from you folks in the weeks ahead and some of the other things you're working on, where can they find you?
Yeah, okay, so first of all, disclaimer, it's a hockey podcast focusing on hockey cards and collectibles. So if you have zero interest in that, don't, okay? Because, I mean, as interesting as I might sound, it's going to be about hockey. So if you're like, oh, I think I could get into a deep dive about the 91-92 Stadium Club hockey card set, yeah, all right, tune in at puckjunk.com or wherever you find podcasts. We've actually started putting our podcasts on our YouTube channel as videos now. We're starting to explore that, which I know people have been doing that forever. Like, oh, videos, you mean videos? Yeah, but you do a podcast and it's audio only, and now everybody's starting to embrace like the video aspect. Although my disdain for those is just looking at somebody talk, like two talking heads, right? And then maybe subtitles, right? And it's just like, who cares? But so what we've started doing is incorporating, like in one podcast, we incorporated pictures of like what we bought at the National. So if you want to check out podcast number 222, that's where we give our National Sport Collector Convention recap. And that was just more just general to the hobby. It wasn't necessarily like hockey centric, but yeah, puckjunk.com or wherever you find podcasts, you can find the Puck Junk podcast.
Well, Sal, once again, always a pleasure kind of talk with you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. I'll probably see you at the Chicago Sports Spectacular. So at least we'll have that, as it were.
Well, thank you for letting me be on your show. I appreciate it.
Hey, folks, this is Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, where it's always sunny on Scarif, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card podcast. Great pull, kid.
One of the most exciting things to happen at the National didn't even happen here. It was the Toytastic Star Wars Trade Night, kind of a night of Star Wars collectors getting together to buy, sell, trade, and also meet up with some Star Wars sketch artists. Names you've heard on the podcast before, like Josh Trout, Don Murphy, and my guest Ian McKesson, who's going to tell us a little more about what happened that night and maybe some exciting news for the future. You know, I knew, Ian, that I was going to miss this Toytastic Star Wars trade night. You know, one of the organizers had kind of reached out to me earlier in the year, but on the night it was, you know, it's my wife's birthday. It's a fixed moment in time, and I knew that I was going to have a small time at the National, and then we were gonna go. But then I saw the picture of all y'all together, and I was like, I did not know Ian was there. You know, like Josh Trout, Don Murphy, a lot of other folks. Yeah. But that's towards the end of the National. When did you get there, and how much of the National did you get to chance to experience?
Well, thank you for having me back, Greg. First of all, love what you do and excited to be here again. And this was my first National. So I got out there. I was at the lake with my family. We do a family trip every year, and I left early from the lake. So I drove back from Lake Mojave by Vegas to San Diego, and I landed in Chicago at 3 a.m. on Thursday. Ooh. And I got to the National at about 1 p.m. on Thursday, which was what I had no idea, man, what I was in store for. Because I go to Comic-Con every year, and, you know, Comic-Con is what Comic-Con is, and it's very well known what it is. But I felt just as in a meat grinder walking through the National on that Thursday as I ever have at Comic-Con. I was shook by it, actually. But it was amazing to see how big and how lost I could get in there, and overwhelmed. I mean, any media plans I had that first day just were gone as soon as I got lost in there. What I did get to do the first 2 nights was I had a table at the SoCo, which was a soccer-specific convention.
Oh, wow.
A few miles away from the actual National. And, you know, I do a lot of work in the soccer world, thankfully, with Topps as well as some custom stuff. And so I had an amazing time those 2 Thursday and Friday nights there. And then the actual Toytastic event was specific to Saturday night at another kind of close to the main venue, but separate venue that Josh and some of the people that helped him put that together had organized. And unbelievably grateful to even be included with the artists that ended up being there, as well as the collectors. And so much for me of the community that I've met has been online, of course, and through like Whatnot and Instagram, of course. But there's so much, I mean, the amount of people that I got to meet for the first time face to face, and I've realized they had a real name, not like Boba Fett Wanderer 664, you know what I mean? Whatever their Whatnot name was. So, you know, for me, that was an incredible part of the event, but a very busy, very, very busy 4 days.
I love the fact you kind of bring in the fact that, you know, you're from San Diego. So it's like, you know, Comic-Con not only happens at, you know, the convention center, it takes over the entire downtown. And there's all those, you know, off-property events. So you can go. Legit, people do it. They'll go to San Diego Comic-Con, not attend the actual event.
Not even go get a ticket. Yep.
And then just bounce around. And so one of the things I did like is seeing like, all right, there is a dedicated night where, you know, people can go. And then I loved them bringing an artist in. Like last year, we had you on the program last year, and I think you were at the Burbank Card Show.
Yep.
With Mama Breaks, who we've also had on.
First show I had ever done. That was last September. Yep.
And as a feature. And so, you know, what a great kind of transition this year at the National, where you're kind of a featured guest. People can kind of come up. I mean, we would talk about it, you know, like when you're doing what you do, you're by yourself. I'm sitting there, I'm doing, you know, like,
for sure. Yeah. I'm literally doing it right now.
Exactly. Sure. Maybe I'm streaming, but here, you know, like you said, you're meeting fans, they're meeting you.
Oh, man.
And also, most times artists like yourself, like, okay, we're in a Facebook group, we're kind of messaging back and forth. But now I'm sitting next to these folks and, you know, not just like online chats, but now we can kind of sit there and we can relax. We can kind of swap stories. I mean, seeing, I didn't 100%. Like, you know, maybe they're sketching like, I didn't realize you did it that way. That just had to be, you know, like, you like, how was you even
I got to
like,
sit next to Don Murphy and Brian Kong were right to my right. Angel Aviles was directly to my left.
Oh, wow.
Josh Trout and I have become very good buddies. He moved himself around the corner. He's so funny. Josh is the best. But I got to meet so many just like artists that I really look up to, as well as like love to, like, you know, like you said, chew it up and see how they can draw that tiny, like the amount of times I went over with Angel, like so you don't use a magnifying glass. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't believe it. But the best part for me was how good of all these people were. Like nothing but motivation and kindness and like hype for each other, and the whole idea of like, you know, rising tide lifts all the boats. I'm watching like, you know, huge transactions go down next to me, but all of us were having successful interactions with, you know, having some of our stuff get to new collectors and have collectors see our stuff for the first time, but also get to just chew it up with people, like you said, that we've only ever met online. And it was a really comfortable, incredible environment. And I really, again, grateful that I get to be part of it, because my son and I are just as nerdy collectors. Like we open a bunch of boxes. So I'm on both sides of the table when I'm at these things. Like, I can't believe I'm seeing that in person. And I can't believe that collection that person has is unbelievable. You know, it's really cool for sure.
So kind of like give me an idea, if you can, of like the room. What's, you know, how big is it? How many people you
small. Think? I think, like, again, and you never know. And when he asked me, Papa Dog and Toys asked me, I guess I was the first one to be like, yeah, dude, I'd love to come meet up with you guys and hang out that night. Again, you know, I just love the community. I'm into it. It has nothing to do with how much I'll sell per se. It's more like, yeah, I would love to meet all these people. So I said yes. And then, you know, they had asked a bunch of people. And then towards the end, obviously you could see it really started picking up momentum. And then, like, you know, Dawn, Angel, Matthew, Maldonado, Cyrus, like Josh Trout, like names just started dropping that you're just like, oh, wow, yeah, cool. And then he had to cap it, right? Because there's only so much room for artists and then so much room for other people. So it's about 125 people room. I think that was max capacity. And it didn't feel like, you know, shoulder to shoulder in there, but it felt like we were maxed out for sure, but in a really good way. Been really positive environment, at least from where I sat and walked around. We got time to walk around a little bit, so we weren't just like stuck behind a table. And it seemed to be going well. There was a couple breakers doing some like online breaks, and then some people trading and some people selling their own collection. So I wouldn't know. I'd love to hear how collectors felt about their ability to trade or sell or whatever on an actual trade night concept. But as far as like an artist getting to meet and be involved in the community, it was like unforgettable moment. And already there's an incredible text thread that has continued from before to afterwards. And we're, you know, setting up for next year's event. And the new additions to, I don't want to spoil any surprises, although the list is starting to get out there, but the list for next year is, I think it's even double, maybe even triple the size of the event space that we're getting for next year. And I know there's a lot of work on coordinating all this. But the list of artists specifically is literally unbelievable. I can't even, it's from artists from UK, from Tijuana, Mexico, from all over the place, or it's going to be awesome.
Hi there, this is Anthony from Force Ghost Conversations, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
And something like that happening at the National, like as kind of like, as I've been kind of going through, you know, this show, it's, you know, the National is a little bit of everything. And when you're into, you know, Star Wars or non-sport, you know, you already have a small, you have a small footprint there, and you've got to kind of work to find it. Here,
totally agree.
And I've been to non-sport shows, and it's really nice because then it becomes it's very concentrated,
right?
But it's exactly what everybody wants. And I think you probably, if you were, as you've kind of been discussing, you have this pent up, like, oh my gosh, everybody here,
has some incredible stuff.
Has incredible stuff, is interested in the same thing, but and I think this is the nice thing. The one thing that have been, and then you're the same way. It's like, as the hobby has, you know, come through the pandemic, and, you know, we kind of saw like it's moved into Fanatics, and you're like, are sketch artists going to still be a part of this equation, right? We've seen the age of the superfractor, and the age of now we've seen a card go for $100K. Whatever you think about that is still something that's out there.
Huge,
But you still have to be excited, like, hey, we're still in the mix. We're still a very important part of this, you know, these sets, and they're still coming after us for our art. And it's still, not only are the existing fans and collectors still out there, but we are making our presence known to now even more folks who might be interested in our stuff. You know,
no question.
In the pack, outside the pack.
You know what? No question about all of that. And I got pretty lucky to jump in. I noticed the Topps 2020 art stuff. That's how I got involved in the art, is that like I saw they do these collabs art. So I kind of came in post pandemic. And the sketch card game had been changing through that period from literal, as quick as you can burn them out sketches to like these mini masterpieces. And I do think more than ever, sketch cards are making their way into sports as well as hugely important in the non-sports world, and how well they're embraced. To me, it only feels like there's more space for us.
Right.
And that's why I feel very fortunate to be there. And again, getting to work with these artists that I can't even believe what they can do on the size of a card, and no surprise that that is being well embraced by both the companies and, collectors. So I only feel like that's a growing dynamic, and it is cool to see in a specific room where everybody's kind of just there, not necessarily just there for the sketch cards, but there for that specific Star Wars card event. And I think Josh can speak to it the best, the guy who put the event on, Toy-tastic, Josh Deutsch, I think is the best way to say his last name. I mean, he was inundated with people that thought that they would be able to buy a ticket at the door or be able to, that kind of thing. And so he easily said he could have doubled or tripled the size and filled up that room with Star Wars people.
Wow. And then it kind of becomes, it becomes more than just the National, becomes this whole
the
thing.
side event. I mean, that was what was cool to hear from all those people, that of all the stuff at the National, and I'm sure a lot of people had some great experiences in the actual National, like this was a highlight for so many people, obviously myself included. So cool to know that you can do this side event because you already have these people that are, kind of getting to the main event, but this thing is the thing they're really looking forward to.
What did you? Did you bring some stuff with you? What I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Like, so this is your first time.
Yep.
What do you even know what to kind of pack, or what do you think you're like? What was your kind of goal, and then what ended up really happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had no idea what to anticipate, and again, the text thread was great because a lot of people were bouncing ideas off each other. Like, what are you going to bring? Because we had silent auction sheets for sort of our bigger stuff to let people, like write their name in and phone number and increase the bids. But then, what I do is pretty unique when I do the graffiti on card stuff. That does well for me, and it's a lower price point, so I just stick with a fixed point for that, and was able to sell some of those. I do some of those wood burning cards, so I was able to sell a couple of those. But I did sell a couple of my, final artist proofs from top sets that I've been really hanging on to, and actually were genuinely hard for me to move a little bit, but went to unbelievable people, and I know they'll be well celebrated in their collection. So I'm very grateful. But yeah, I did. So it was kind of each person had a combination of different things you could tell that they were selling. And it went better than expected for me. But again, my expectations are always just like low, in the sense that I know that if I can meet a few people that I had never met before, if I could find somebody else that finds what I'm doing, I will leave with a positive experience. And it was well beyond whatever I could have hoped for sure.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And also nice to see someone like Josh who, kind of cut his teeth on the sports side of things.
100%.
And when I first met him, he'd only kind of done a little bit of masterwork, but now, like I said, I think, and even more so now, like I said, you've done a lot of different work, but there's a lot more properties that now you'll be kind of funneled with Topps. And yeah, I'm assuming your plate is pretty full for the rest of the year.
You know what? Right now, I have a couple sets I'm looking at right now that are exciting for me to work on. I've worked on some other properties for Topps, of course. I found I just missed a property for Cryptozoic. I guess I missed the email, which sounds like a cool project, but and I've done a couple for them before that were cool. So yeah, plate's full, but full as I want it to be, if that makes sense. It's still this like hobby amount of time that is now becoming a larger chunk of my time. And I'm, again, just like hyped and really motivated and so grateful that people want what I want. I mean, this is kind of inside stuff, but I'm so excited to share it. I'm not sure if you're that big into the soccer world, but I was literally just texting back and forth with Antoine Griezmann these last couple of days. He is a French national footballer. He plays for Atletico Madrid. He is an all-time legend soccer player, footballer, and he's really into the card world now. And so he has we have this idea project going back and forth, and it's early days, so nothing, but to be able to be connected with an absolute legend about a, art project idea is dreamland for me. And so those kind of things are starting to happen. And yeah, so yeah, motivated and plate is full for sure.
Awesome. Any shows that are coming up?
Again, used to be called the Burbank Card Show. Now it's called the West Coast Card Show. I'll be in Artist Alley next weekend. So that's the 22nd through 25th, I think, in Anaheim. And again, they've grown into a bigger area. It's almost 2 times the amount of tables they had last year, sold out again. So it just feels like it's a growing phenomenon that I get to be involved in. So I'll be there.
That's cool. And then, of course, we'll be seeing you back here. Sounds like we're going to see you back here next year for the National
100%.
again.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I hope you at least
100%.
had a chance to get some good food in and all that.
No food, nothing. Next year I am changing again. I got there for, the whole planning was not well planned, but next year I will make more time to be actually, I don't even tell anybody. I don't feel like I saw Chicago. I saw the inside of a few different convention centers and what have you, but next time will be enough time to eat and explore and see that museum. I heard is incredible too.
I love seeing this, and I love hearing the fact that you guys had such a great time.
Such a great time. And I think anybody that's into it at all would, and hope to see you at least in some capacity, even if it's at the actual National before. But I would recommend everybody reaching out as early as they can, because it looks like this one's going to sell out again. So I just hope everybody that has that wants to have an opportunity to be there gets an opportunity to be there for sure.
Awesome. All right, and just to let everybody know where they can find you online so they can see some of the awesome work and maybe connect.
Yeah, thank you, man. Mainly Instagram these days. I do Whatnot as well, both under the same name, Ian McKesson, no space, all lowercase. But yeah, please, if you're interested, hit me up. I love to get my art as many places as possible. And I do a show on Whatnot about once a week where I try to do
some live art as well. Enjoy, and good luck at the West Coast
Thank you,
Card Show.
Yep. Right. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you.
Hi, this is Femi Taylor. I play Ula in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's slave dancer. You're listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast.
All right, to kind of round out things back here at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center, as I kind of go back around on the show floor for Fan Expo Chicago, which of course is a podcast for another time. I want to thank all my guests on tonight for this national recap. Ian Taylor, Carl Schmidt, Sal Berry, and of course Ian McKesson. I hope you enjoyed this show. It was a fun show. The National is going to be back here again next year and the following year. And then, of course, in 2028, it's going to move to Detroit. But the show does rotate around. So if you're interested in attending the National, just know that, unlike, say, C2E2, Rosemont is a little easier to negotiate. The parking's a little cheaper. The hotel's maybe a little cheaper. And, of course, it's a big show, and it just keeps growing and growing. But I'll look forward to seeing the show again next year. And look forward to talking to you folks about it. So until then, I'm going to let Card Squadron take it out, and we'll talk to you soon.
The Rebel Base Card Podcast focuses on cards, collecting, and the Star Wars community, and appreciates you coming along for the ride.
If you have any feedback for this episode, you can reach out to the program in a number of ways. You can leave a comment on the Instagram post for this episode. You can also DM Greg on Instagram at Rebel Base Card.
Make sure to also follow the Rebel Base Card on Twitter and Facebook at Rebel Base Card. If you want, you can send an email to greg@rebelbasecard.com.
And you can find show notes for this and all episodes on the website rebelbasecard.com. In the Star Wars Card Trader app and just about every other one, you can find Greg at CornFedTech.
The Rebel Base Card uses the hashtag Card Squadron as a way to alert friends about cool cards and recent drops in the galaxy far, far away. It's a great way to bring our community a little bit closer together and help one another finish our sets in time. We collect, communicate, and commiserate. Well, at least when we run out of credits or crystals to spend on our digital collections. Join the fun, even if all the other cool squadron names were already taken. And remember, we collect as one, and would be honored if you join us.
And if you are a sketch card artist, or Star Wars artist or collector, cosplayer, and want to talk about your work, your craft or passion, drop Greg a line. I'm sure he'd love to hear your story. You can also help the show by leaving a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you got this episode.
Otherwise, the mission is clear. Keep those cards out of the hands of the Empire, and the Rebel Base Card will return soon.
This podcast is not affiliated in any way with Topps, Disney, or Star Wars, nor is it endorsed by Disney or Lucasfilm, and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All names and sounds and any other related items are properties of their respective trademarks and/or copyright holders here in the U.S. and abroad. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com.
That's it.
Remind me to tell you the story of how my son and we threw out a first pitch at a Rays spring training game.
Come on, really?
To the mascot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Here's the quick story, right? So you remember the movie The Rookie? It was a Disney movie about this guy who was a Rays pitcher. Yeah, he was a teacher. Like he was a washout.
Yeah.
Came back and pitched, right? Dennis Quaid played him in the movie.
Okay, yeah.
So in 2002, they had Dennis Quaid throw out the first pitch downtown St. Pete at the Rays' first spring training game. So fast forward a year, 2003, Dennis Quaid ain't there. So I'm sitting in, my son is about a year and a half. I got him in a Rays onesie and all that, and someone comes up and he goes, "Would you guys like to throw out the first pitch?" And I'm like, wow, this is a step down for you, isn't it? But they took us down, and they said, I've taken my son to like at least 15 games because it was cheap. So they're introducing us, and they go, and at his first major league game, Christian McLaughlin. I'm like, nah, that sounds better. Sounds a lot better when it's his first game. So I'm actually holding my son, who's a year and a half in this arm. I'm on the pitcher's mound, and I threw the first pitch. I got the ball. The camera was in my bag and not given to someone like if I should have. So I went outside, and I had the hot dog vendor take a picture of my son and I with the ball. That ball has been on my desk, whatever job I've had, from that day, and this is 2003. And I wrote on it, and I said, Ray, and I tell my son, I'm like, you can throw away we have a lot of signed baseballs from Rays players who are selling cars now. But I said, you can throw away a lot of them. This one you keep. He's not nostalgic now at age 23, but I'm telling you, like down the road, this is something you and I did. And it's like, so yeah, we threw it. I can never find a picture of it. I reached out one time, like, do you guys have pictures? Like, no, nobody has pictures except me from the hot dog vendor with my son on my shoulders with the ball.
That's cool.
It's on my desk.
That's cool.